When you have big dreams, like dreams that are bigger than you, dreams that are bigger than the season that you're in, require your trust, require faith, and require sometimes playing the long game, even when you don't know if you are even close to that dream becoming possible or that dream becoming a reality anytime soon. This is something that I want to yarn to you about in this episode of Journey to Black Belt is what does it take to keep the faith when the immediate pathway in front of you doesn't look like it's possible, or the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels so wide that it's almost impossible. You don't have the resources and you don't have the time, and it just feels really overwhelming that on the outside of things, the dream that you have doesn't look possible on paper, logistically, or in front of you. And this is a story that I want to share with you, that sometimes the taking radical responsibility to make long-term decisions and avoid short-term satisfaction to make the long-term sacrifices. Short-term sacrifices for long-term gain. And this is something that I had to do this week, and it hurt. Sometimes taking radical responsibility and making the right decision doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always feel like it's the, and I'm not talking from an ego sense or that need, I'm talking from that soul level need of just a little bit of injection of faith. You just looking at the sky, you're talking to your beliefs, you're talking to your life, you're talking to yourself and going, I just need a sign that this is possible. I just need a sign that I'm on the right path. Because I hear you. If you are someone who is following a big calling and you are in the messy middle, or you are somewhere on the journey where it just feels like the gap is so wide and you are thin on faith, you are thin on resources, you are thin on energy, everything just feels so fragile that you just don't know where to look to, and you don't know if you can take another step. And sometimes this is the test. This is the universe, and in my case, the universe and the ancestors saying, how bad do I really want this? This is the arena. These are the key moments that determine how much I'm willing to step up to do what it's going to take to make this dream possible, to do the work now, to lay the foundation so that when the dream becomes possible, or I'm called up to take that next step into this season, that I'm prepared and as ready as I can be. And it's not just about achieving the end goal. It's about who have I become in the preparation, so that when I step into that dream, it's not just about achieving it in the moment. It's about the fact that the foundation has been laid through the work that I've done and who I've become to be able to carry this dream into something so much bigger. It's not just about achieving the dream. It's about being able to hold it. It's about being prepared and ready for what comes next after that, because I've been here before, where I have been so focused on that end goal that when I achieved the goal, I fell over because I didn't know what was beyond the dream. I wasn't prepared. That I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? And I almost fell over and lost my way multiple times. And I don't want to repeat mistakes of the past. I want to learn the lessons from those experiences. If you're new here, welcome to Journey to Black Belt with Shantelle. I'm a proud Barkindji woman. My name is Shantelle Thompson, and I'm known in my community as the Barkindji Warrior, Warrior Heart. And this podcast is all about your journey to your dream. For me, it's my journey to black belt. And it's not just about being a black belt on the mats of jiu-jitsu or in competition. It's not just about a world title. Those are vehicles and arenas for me to become who I'm meant to become, those experiences to shape me, so that the impact I'm called to have in the world, I can do that through the vehicles of storytelling, through being a woman in sport, through being a mum in sport, through being on an international platform. It's not about the medals that I win. It's about what I can make them mean for other people, the stories that become possible, the lessons, who I became along the way, and what that means for what I'm here to do in the world. And I would really love it if you'd like to join me further on this journey, to hit subscribe and like wherever you're hearing this, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on my podcast, and maybe share this podcast with someone that you know will benefit from it. I went from suicide to world champion. I have got 3 degrees under my belt. I started jiu-jitsu at the age of 19 because I was the one who was becoming destructive in my own life. The things that I had done to survive were now the things that were harming me, that were stopping me from stepping into my power and my potential. And jiu-jitsu has been a vehicle in my life, an arena, a sacred space of being and becoming for me since I was 19 years old. So I'm now 41. That's 22 years since I started jiu-jitsu. And on that journey, I have had many experiences, many iterations, and I love sharing those experiences. And a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing now isn't historical lessons that I've learned. It's stuff that I'm going through now in my journey to black belt. So if this serves you somewhere, and if you've been here before, please let me know what you think of the podcast. Please let me know what you'd like to hear more of. Hit like and subscribe below. And if you'd really like to hear more, come and join me over on my new community over on school called the Warrior Heart, where there's community. I share more in-depth sites around the lessons that I've learned going from suicide to world champion, the lessons I've learned in 22 years of being the Barkindji Warrior through the vehicle of jiu-jitsu. I teach about my culture, and it's where we inspire and empower each other to be our boldest, bravest versions of ourselves. This particularly is for people who have been told they are too much or not enough for the world, that they were not allowed to be themselves in the world, or that it wasn't safe to be themselves. And yet you fought anyway. You have found yourself here for a reason, so let's do something about that. So this is about playing the long game when you know you've got a decision in front of you. You meet a moment where you are so depleted, you are at such a low point, you have been fighting for so long, you have been giving so much to the journey, and you look around you and you just don't know if you can take another step. You don't know if you can hold on any longer. Your faith is being tested so much. You are so tired in the journey that you just don't know how much further you can carry on without a sign or something to just top your soul up a little bit to keep you going in the journey. And that was me this weekend. This week. I haven't done jiu-jitsu in 8 months. I haven't competed since mid last year. So if you're hearing this today, it's being recorded on the 2nd of March, 2025. So mid 2024 was the last time that I competed. I haven't trained jiu-jitsu in an actual jiu-jitsu club for about 5 months or more. Actually, I think it's been 6 months or more. And I'm just, my soul, my spirit, my body just needs a top up. It needs to be able to do what I love. And yet I'm just not in a position to make that happen. So this week on Monday, I got an email in my inbox that there was a competition in Sydney on Saturday, March the 1st. And it's the Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Pro. And in this competition, it's one of the best in the world. And in this competition, if I competed in Australia, it would give me an Australian ranking and an international ranking, which is one of the goals for my jiu-jitsu this year, is to be ranked internationally to move towards my goal of being a full-time athlete. And I not only saw the competition, and there was another black belt female competing. So me being able to get competition, having the time, the money, and the resources to get to a competition is one thing. Being able to actually have black belt females competing that are also in my division is another thing as well. And I got so excited when I seen it, and registrations closed on Monday. So I registered. And I was so excited. I was like, I need this. Even just registering, like, my soul energy went up, my physical energy went up, my joy went up, because I knew that I was going to be having an opportunity to connect with my community, to do something that I love, and connect with another female that was also doing what she loves. And then Wednesday came, and I really had to sit down and look at this goal. I had to take a higher level view of this goal and really ask myself, is the short-term payoff of going to this competition contributing to the long-term game, or is it taking away from the long-term goal of becoming a black belt world champion? So for context, 2023 and 2024 were the hardest years of my life accumulatively. And the ongoing impact and consequences of that have been, I'm still in recovery for my mental health. Financially, my businesses stopped generating revenue because I wasn't able to show up and deliver and be in that space to be constantly marketing and delivering. So I'm rebuilding financially, and I'm rebuilding my businesses and my brand in a different way that are more self-sustaining and are more honoring of the life that I want to create, but also my health and well-being being at the foundations and a core pillar of my success and what I'm building in 2025. So this means playing the long game, and every decision of time, effort, finances, and resources needs to contribute to the momentum that I'm creating towards the goal where I'm building businesses and a brand that is self-sustaining beyond myself. So not having access to something that I've done or been involved with for 22 years is... Jiu-jitsu is an arena that for many people means so much to them. Or when you find your thing where you find your flow, it's a space where you can fill your cup up, you can be yourself, and it gives you capacity to go about your life. That's what jiu-jitsu has been for me through different seasons. It's had that core kind of thread in the weaving of why it's important to me. So to not be able to train on a daily and weekly basis, to not have access to a club locally where I feel welcomed and valued and respected to do the thing that I love, but also to be able to contribute to others. It's a constant pain in my heart. It's like there's something missing in my life. And to not be able to compete after years of competing 6 to 10 times a year, I really look at it and go, is this worth it? Is this even available to me in the bigger picture of being a 41-year-old woman, single mum with 3 dependents at home, a mum of 5. I've got a foundation that I'm building. I've got a brand that I'm building, and I've already won 3 world titles. So in the bigger picture of it, it's like, is this even possible? And is it worth what it's going to take? And yet when something calls you so strongly, when something compels you and it speaks to your spirit, it speaks to your life, and you just have this knowing that this serves something so much bigger than even what you can understand right now. Even though it doesn't look possible, it just calls you forward. That's my journey with jiu-jitsu, and I've been here before. That's how I went from suicide to world champion in the first season. So I know it's possible. But my belief was at the start of the week was stretched and was at breaking point. It was so thin that I was just ready to throw it all in and just put it in the too hard basket. So on Wednesday, when I got to this point, I had to sit down and take radical responsibility for where I'm at. And the final decision or awareness when I took the eagle eye view of everything was that going to this competition would put me in debt to the long-term picture of 2025, because it would have cost me at least $1,500 to get to Sydney. It would have taken 4 days out of my calendar, so Friday through to Monday. And I don't have a car that's 100% up to driving that distance and back because it's needs some upgrades. And the car that I have is the only reliable source of transport that I have, not just for my family, but for the youth work that I do. So when I looked at the cost of the time, the money, and the resources, it just didn't add up to going all the way to Sydney for one competition. And when I accepted that decision, I cried. Have you ever been in a position where you are moving towards something so big that it calls you and it speaks to you, and yet it feels like the gap between where you are and where you want to go is so far? That was me this week. And yet by Friday, I felt a sense of peace at my acceptance of the situation and accepting that playing the long game, sacrificing in the short term for the long-term gain is the only way forward in this season. It's the immediate gratification is not going to set my business up for success. It's not going to set my health up for success. And it's definitely not going to set my family and the long-term picture up for success, because in this season, I'm laying the foundations, and every decision that is made needs to be a seed planted or needs to create momentum. So there needs to be the return on investment of time, effort, and resources needs to create progress and momentum, or it needs to plant seeds for a return on investment of those things to support the long-term goal, whilst also not stretching immediate resources. It needs to have an immediate benefit and a long-term benefit. And yet it still sucks. I mean, I don't know in the foreseeable future, in the next 6 weeks, of when I'm going to be able to have enough time and resources to get to a jiu-jitsu opportunity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and look at, over the next 6 to 8 weeks, where is there an opportunity that I could get to Adelaide or Melbourne and do a training weekend. Might not necessarily be a competition, but I get to go for 2 or 3 days and do jiu-jitsu and connect with the jiu-jitsu community to fill up my cup. And what's it going to take to do that? Like, how much resources do I need? And what work do I need to have done to be able to say that when I take that time off, it's not detrimental to the long-term gain? And that's the plan that I did. So now I know what I need to have in place for that to be possible. And I'm working towards it. It might come in 4 weeks, it might come in 3 months, but working towards things in a shorter term block is working for me, because I'm a big visionary. So I have the long-term vision and I can do the immediate execution, but working strategically in short sprints is something new to my processing and how I'm showing up. So what I want to ask you is, what are you working towards? And are the decisions that you're making and how you're showing up in the day, in the moment, moving you closer or further away from your long-term goal? I mean, going to Sydney to compete would have filled an immediate need. It would have filled up my cup. I would have loved to have gone to Sydney to compete. And yet I know that when I got back and I looked at my bank account, the potential risk on my car, the wear and tear on my car, and the pile up of the workload that is still there in the back end of working on my business and the things that need to get done in order to move towards that goal within the next 6 months of the businesses being self-sustaining beyond me, or at least much more than what they are right now, wasn't going to contribute to the big picture. So radical responsibility is about us being willing to face ourselves. It's about being able to sit with ourselves. So in Indigenous culture, there is a word called dadidi, which was given to us by Annie Rose Ummenberg from a beautiful community in the Northern Territory. And each Indigenous culture has this across Australia. The First Nations cultures has a form and a practice of deep listening. I don't know the language word for deep listening, for contemplation, for meditation in Barkindji Warrior. So I'm sharing one with you that was gifted to the world by Annie Rose. The Didi means it's a form of contemplation. It's a form of being able to be with yourself and deep listening to self, to country, to community, to others, to life itself. And it's not about being carried away by your emotions. It's by being able to sit back and reflect on everything and be with what is. And that's what I've started to take as a practice in this season. It's something that I have never done before. So the things like radical responsibility and dadidi are not practices that were habits in my previous seasons. And this is what it's going to take to work towards laying a season and a foundation where it's not just about achieving the end goal. It's about the fact that when you are at that point where you've achieved your goal, it's setting you up to be able to hold that space and be able to carry whatever comes with achieving that moment. And radical responsibility is about being able to sit with yourself. It's about being able to sit with all of the different options that you have in front of you and sitting in the truth of what is the most aligned next step that is in service of the bigger vision, but also the season that you're in. Because they can be two different things. You could know that you're working towards a big vision, and yet that vision is a part of something so much bigger that it might not be meeting the season that you're in, and you might look at it and go, well, that doesn't feel possible from here and where I am. So it's important to be able to ask yourself some questions of understanding yourself in the context of who you are and who you're called to become. So who are you in this season, but also who are you becoming? And how are you showing up towards that bigger dreaming? Are you just talking about it? Are you willing to do what it takes to have that dream, or does it just feel good to say it? Because we all have many aspirations. Like we talk about being rich. We can talk about wanting to be healthy. And then when it comes down to it, are we willing to make the short-term decisions to be healthy, not just as an end goal to fit into an outfit or look a certain way just for summer or for a wedding or for our birthdays, but about these decisions laying the foundations for a way of life, for a way of showing up, that it becomes just our way of being. It's not even about a habit. This is who we become because of how we choose to show up. And sometimes having that big dream is just a way of us being prepared and shaped for who we're called to be in this world. And having a dream that is bigger than yourself, having a dream where it serves others, allows us to move through hard moments. It can be the thing that grounds us when we face adversity or challenges. And that's all these moments are. They're opportunities for us to see how committed are we to that dream. When we are tested in the moment, what will we choose? Will we choose our comfort zone and our past? Or will we choose to do what we need to do now to be able to move forward towards that dreaming? And it's about owning our stories and owning our experiences and owning who we are in this season. It's not about weaponizing these things against ourselves, because that's another form of procrastination. It's another form of avoidance for not showing up. And if you're not willing to do what it takes, if you're not willing to make those short-term sacrifices or to take deep responsibility or to sit with yourself into deep listening, then maybe it's not the right dream for you. Maybe that dream was just there to guide you towards the next things. And it's because if you are willing, there's one thing to say it, there's another thing to be about it. And it's in these opportunities to find out and get curious about who you really are and what is worth fighting for in this lifetime. What and who is worth showing up for. Rather than just going through life on autopilot, strip it all away and sit with yourself and go, am I really living a life that is worth living? That when I get to my deathbed, I get to my last breath, if you are gifted enough to know that it is your last moment, will you be satisfied? Will you be proud of? Will you be able to go in peace knowing that you lived a life worth living? Not just survived it or not just avoided it and you lived the same day for 50 years. You lived the same year 50 times over. You didn't grow, you didn't progress, you didn't do something with your life, you didn't become someone. And that doesn't necessarily mean about becoming a world champion or a world leader. It's about how are you showing up and leading yourself and setting up a life and a story that's worth telling, both at the end of the day and at the end of the year and at the end of your lifetime. And this is why this being able to make a decision, and I miss jiu-jitsu so much, and yet I know that this is about playing the long game, that I want to do jiu-jitsu in a way that is sustainable to my family, to my health and well-being. I don't want my desire and my journey to do jiu-jitsu to be in conflict with my family, with my health and well-being, with my finances. I don't want jiu-jitsu to take away from the other areas of my life. I want it to add value to the other areas of my life, that when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, it's adding to my financial well-being. It's adding to my mental health. It's allowing me to be a more grounded and present and loving mother to my children. It's allowing me to be a better business person and entrepreneur. And when I'm called to step up and lead, it's allowing me to be a better leader. So yes, in the short term, I don't have access to jiu-jitsu, but I'm taking the steps to build that long-term vision to make it possible. Building a business plan, creating the space in my life, setting up the financial systems and opportunities, making sure that my responsibilities, that there's enough space in my life to do jiu-jitsu at the level that it's going to take in a way that honors the other roles and responsibilities that I have. And it's also okay that this short-term decision hurts and sucks like hell too. Sometimes the right decision isn't always going to feel like the right decision in the short term. And that's why Dididi, like practices, First Nations Indigenous practices like Dididi are so important, because they're holistic. They make space for us to be with a truth that can still hurt. They allow us to be with something that we know is the most true and aligned step for us to take. And it also allows us to be in a space where we can acknowledge how much it hurts in the immediate moment. And we don't have to punish ourselves. We don't have to avoid, and we don't have to judge ourselves either for how we feel. And yet it's something bigger than that. It's about being able to take action that builds belief over time. It's about being able to go with not becoming the person who isn't driven by their surface level feelings that are created by ego or trauma responses. It's about that underlying soul level, being soul guided, being in your truth in a way that resonates like right down here in your soul, in your gut, where you know you can be proud of yourself. You can respect yourself because you are showing up and making the decisions. And in the moments where you don't make the decisions, so let's use health as an example. You say you're going to be healthy, you say that this is something that you want, and it's not just about losing weight, but it's about becoming a lifestyle, so that you have the body and the health as the foundations for the wealth and the life that you want to create. So it's about investing that time in going to the gym or exercising consistently. And it's also about eating well, because most of our results, we can exercise all we want, but if we're not putting the nutritional value into our body that lays the foundation for that movement to have its full benefits, then we're only half-assing it. And it could be that you know that you need to drink more water during the day, and yet every time you go to drink water, you avoid it and make an excuse. How can you make it easy for yourself to do that goal consistently? Do you have a smartwatch? Can you put a reminder on your watch? Do you have a phone where you can put an alarm on your phone 3 times a day that reminds you to drink 500 mils of water? This is the other thing. How do you make it easy for yourself to be consistent towards the habits and the movement that you need to lay the foundations for the dreaming to become possible, so that when you are taking responsibility, you're doing it in a way that is within your capacity and your capabilities? How do you make it easy for yourself? If this was going to be easy, what would it look like? If it was going to feel good, what does it look like? We don't have to suffer in the movement towards our dreams. It might feel like suffering in the moment, but sometimes it's our own mindset or our own perceptions or our own attitudes towards what we need to do now to make the dreams possible that creates the suffering within ourselves. Because there's a difference between suffering and pain. Pain is a part of life. I mean, going to the gym and moving your body and ending up all sore because you've done a big workout is necessary sometimes. Being sore in your body is necessary for growth, because it's evidence that you've moved your body in a way that it's pushed your body. Your body has been under pressure. Your body has been worked out in a way that you can show that you're creating growth. But pushing yourself to the point where you injure yourself or you're so sore that you can't walk for 3 or 4 days kind of doesn't make any sense, because then you've taken yourself out for 3 or 4 days. For what purpose? For what benefit? So another concept that I want to gift you in making hard decisions that don't always feel good in the moment is Womenjeka, which is a Wurundjeri, it's a Woiwurrung word from the Wurundjeri people of Naarm, and it means to come with purpose. And when a Wurundjeri person says to you in the Woiwurrung language, Womenjeka, it's a question and it's a statement and it's an opportunity. What is your purpose for being here? What is your business in being here right now? What is your intention? And what is your business that you're bringing to this moment? These are really powerful concepts that when I sat down with myself and I practiced a ditty to sit down and look at the decision to go to Sydney to compete jiu-jitsu and go, is this going to add to or take away from my long-term goal of becoming a black belt world champion? How is this decision going to add value and momentum and resources to the long-term thing without being detrimental to my immediate season? And what was my purpose for going? My purpose when I first intended to go was to feel an immediate soul need, because it wasn't just from ego. It was like, I am missing jiu-jitsu so much that I was literally in tears. Like, if you know, you know. When you have something that you love so much, it's like being a parent who loves their child so much. And when you can't be with your children, it is soul breaking. It puts scars on your spirit. And jiu-jitsu is more than just a sport for me. It has been a space where I have gone from suicide to healing, where I have faced myself in some of my hardest decisions in the world. Like, who was I going to be? When I finished my teaching degree in 2013, and I realized that when I graduated that I was going to have to, that I was in a position where I wanted to choose between going after my dream and my calling of being a world champion versus being a teacher working with young people. And I realized when I graduated that teaching in schools wasn't going to allow me to do those two things well in a way that they honored each other. I didn't want my dreams to be in conflict with each other. So I chose not to, once I graduated with my teaching degree, I chose not to teach in a school. And I trusted that my way of working with young people through education, self-development, and being a role model would present itself in a different way. And that became Kilalana. So sitting with that dream and looking at it and being responsible and practicing Dididi, when I asked myself for what purpose, yes, it would fulfill an immediate need and not an ego or a trauma need, but a deep soul need to actually be able to just connect with jiu-jitsu, move for the sake of movement and do what I love. And yet when I sat with it at a soul level, my spirit spoke to me and said, if I take this time to do it, it will only be a Band-Aid solution. It would only fill me up a little bit. And in the long term, it would be more detrimental to the long-term picture than it would be to add value. So if you are working towards a big dream or a big calling, and where you are seems so far from that moment that your faith is tested, that you are being tested, trust that in this test there is a silver lining, and it's an opportunity for you to see what you're really committed to. And if you're not willing to do what it takes to get to that goal, that's just an opportunity to reflect, to go, well, what am I willing to fight for? What am I willing to live for? And that might be an opportunity to get really real with yourself, to practice Wimajeka and to practice Dididi. Do you have a space in your home where you can practice ceremony, where you can be with yourself? So this is where I'm recording this, is my home office. It's set up with culture. I do ceremony and smoking ceremonies, and then other times I'm out on country by water and under the gum trees where I sit and I can ask these questions. And I can allow my soul and my spirit and my life and my ancestors to speak to me, to guide me, because I know the big dreaming and I know the season that I'm in, but sometimes I don't always know the next best step. And I trust that if I have this calling, that it is there to guide me. It is there to speak to me. I don't need all the answers. I don't need a blueprint. I need a plan, and that plan is flexible. It is about something so much bigger than me. And these short-term decisions sometimes hurt and they may not make sense. And yet it's okay with not, I'm okay with not understanding in the short term, or even going, well, when is this going to become possible? So this is for you if you are in a moment where you are stretched, where you are being asked, what are you really willing to fight for? What are you really willing to do? And who are you really willing to become? And if you don't make the best decision at the time, it's okay. Forgive yourself, learn from it, and the next opportunity will come. Have a look at Dididi, It's DADIRRI for those that would like to know more, and it's Annie Rose Armenberg. And if you use some of this concept, please give proper respect and acknowledgement to where it's come from and who you've learnt it from, so that you're not taking cultural appropriation. Even as an Indigenous person, I don't have the right to use someone else's language in my teachings or in my guidance without giving proper acknowledgement, because it's not from my community. And even if it was from my community and culture, I have to acknowledge who are my elders or where did I learn it from. Even if it was just from spirit and life, I still acknowledge that. Wimanjeka is from the Woiwurrung language of the Wurundjeri people. And I implore you to sit with yourself and go, where are you showing up? Where are you not making the long-term decisions and actions that are going to move you closer towards your dreaming and not leave you in debt because you're fulfilling a short-term need? I hope I get to a competition soon, and I hope that I get to a jiu-jitsu mat sometime soon where I get to roll and be with other people who are doing jiu-jitsu, both for competition and just for life. And I also sit in trust that what I'm doing and who I'm becoming will make that possible for a lifetime and in a season rather than just short-term gratification. Big love you, mob. I hope this serves you in some way. I hope that you have the courage to take responsibility where you need to, and to practice deep listening, and to ask yourself to be guided by your why. Like, what is your purpose for doing this? Like, what is your intention? What is your business in this moment? And how does the decision that you're making now going to set you up for the long term? Big love you, Mom.